Hi friends, welcome back to The Classy Mommy. I'm Brittany and I'm glad you're here. In today's video, I want to talk to you about what to do if you're planning on taking maternity leave while teaching. Okay, number one, talk to your HR and your administrator as soon as you feel comfortable. You guys, this last pregnancy I had, I was brand new to a new district and I really wanted to know what my options were for maternity leave. I was familiar with FMLA, but I didn't know if the district would give me paid time off, if I could use my sick days, if I could tap into a sick leave bank, and honestly, every district is very different. I've been part of 2 different districts during my 2 pregnancies, and I would say both of them handled pregnancy and maternity leave very different. So I went and I made an appointment with my HR rep. I had a very candid conversation with her and I said, hey, I'm not pregnant, but my family is considering growing this year. So what does that look like for me? Can I take time off with pay, without pay? You know, in every district, like I said, is going to be different. I really feel like after I talked with my HR person, it gave us what we needed to know so that we could plan financially for my leave. Some of it was paid leave and some of it wasn't, but I felt like that conversation at least gave us somewhere to start so we knew how to start saving and planning. Also, most school districts will give you the opportunity to enroll at the beginning of the year, usually for, I believe it's called a long-term disability insurance policy. I could be wrong, but that's what it was for us. It was considered long-term disability, meaning there was going to be a period of time where I couldn't work because of medical reasons, which in this case was maternity leave and pregnancy. We signed up for that policy and then we became pregnant a few months later. So it worked out great. But if you're considering growing your family or starting your family, definitely look into that open enrollment time that most districts have where they give you the option to enroll in a long-term disability plan. It does usually cost a little bit extra out of pocket because it's optional, but definitely worth it if you're growing or starting your family. Also, I'd say talk to your administrator as soon as you feel ready to. I know some people like to wait to that 12-week mark, but I felt very comfortable talking to my administrator both times with 2 different administrators early on in the process. I really wanted them to be part of the process with me so that I had their support. I did have really bad morning sickness with pregnancy number 2. So I wanted to have that open conversation and I talked to some colleagues and they knew what was going on as well. They knew I was really early in my pregnancy. I didn't tell my students yet, but I felt like having that support system around me, you know, not only made it possible for me to be able to run to use the restroom between classes, and my co-teachers were so supportive and understanding because they knew what was going on. In those early days, you have to use the restroom a lot. And I also loved having all of their support if I had, you know, just some really bad morning sickness. I felt like people gave me a lot of extra grace because they knew what was going on. They were really supportive of me. So I chose to tell my administrator and some colleagues pretty early on. But, you know, just feel it out, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But definitely you want to get your HR person and your administrator on board with what's going on so you guys can be a team moving forward and planning. Number 2. Start asking around for fantastic sub recommendations. Now, even if you're early on in your pregnancy and you're looking at scheduling out a few months, start getting on the radar of some of these fantastic subs. You know, amazing substitutes are really hard to come by because they're usually so popular they get booked. Start having those conversations. If you don't know who to ask to be your long-term sub, or maybe you're new in the district, I was new in my district last year and I had to reach out to some friends and say, you know, do you guys have anyone you'd recommend? I'm a music teacher and I know that not every substitute would feel comfortable being in my classroom. So I really put the feelers out there quite early on and I got some amazing feedback from my colleagues and from my principal. Between all of us, my colleagues and my principal were able to team me up with someone who was wonderful. This person not only had been familiar in our building and had been in our building quite a bit, but knew quite a few of the students because she had been substituting in other classes too. And she was familiar with my classroom. She'd been in a couple of times. So she had a good handle on what my classroom system was like, what my expectations were out of the kids, how I like to run things. So it made a really smooth transition. And I even reached out to my HR rep as well. They are a fantastic resource finding subs because they usually know who likes to do long-term subbing in the district. So reach out, you're not alone, get some suggestions. Number 3, now that you've identified your substitute, start meeting with them early on. If you can, meet with them a few times at least before you go on your leave so that they can come in, start getting the layout of your room, start understanding the flow and the structure and your teaching style so that they can know exactly what expectations you have for your students and be able to carry that through during your leave. It also really helps for when you're ready to come back to the classroom that your expectations, your system, your routines are already ironed out. So start meeting with your substitute as soon as you have them identified. Definitely bring them in if they can come and observe you teach just a little bit so they get the idea of what your system and your style is so they can keep it going while you're gone. Also, during those planning stages with your substitute, please touch base with your administrator as well about responsibilities that you might normally have during your leave time. So for example, I plan a Veterans Day event and I was touching base with my principal and with other colleagues, starting to put some feelers out and starting to do the groundwork for that event before I went on maternity leave even. So make sure you let your administrator and your substitute know any big goals that are coming up that will need to be on everyone's radar. Number 4, subplans. These can be really intimidating, especially if you're planning on taking the full 12 weeks or even more off. My first time I had a long-term sub with my first pregnancy, it was my sister. We look very much alike. All of our students said we sounded exactly alike. She's fantastic. We grew up together, obviously, so I feel like she was really able to match almost my exact teaching style. She was so much fun. In fact, my students were happy to see me when I came back, but also very sad to see her go. And she just was able to slide in really easily. As we were talking about our sub plans, I asked her, do you want me to write out details of every single day? How detailed of plans do you need to be successful? And she said, just get me started. Let me know your overall goals, what you want the students to accomplish by the time you come back. And I want to do the backwards planning and I want to be able to check with their pace and make sure I'm matching their pace. So she, in that instance, had a music background, had a teaching background. She already knew a lot of the students. She felt really comfortable just taking that on, mostly with me, of course, setting the big overall goals. And with my most recent substitute, she said, you know what, music is not my expertise, which is fine. And she said, I would really like it if you had all the lessons planned out for me to follow. That's great too. So that's another reason why I think it's really important to touch base with your substitute early on, see what their strengths are, see where they need extra support, ask them, what kind of lesson planning do you need? And I know in my school and in some schools, it's normal for a classroom teacher to start off their leave with the very specific lessons listed out in great detail, and then to give them some freedom to be able to contact and be in communication with their grade level team. So for example, a second grade teacher goes on maternity leave and plans out the first 4 weeks of all the lessons and all the activities, just right down to the smallest detail. And then says, I have such a fantastic, let's say, second grade team of teachers. In your guys' weekly meetings, they'll let you know what units are coming next, what lessons they want to really hit, because sometimes curriculum does need to be flexible a little bit. So again, for your situation, for your specific job, just touch base with your team if you have a team, with your substitute for sure, and see what their preference is. And of course, it doesn't hurt to ask your administrator, how detailed of plans should you leave? Number 5, be easy to reach. I think this is so important, not only for your time while you're gone, but also for transitioning back into your classroom. Be easy to reach via whatever you feel comfortable with, whether it's phone call, text, or email. I told my substitute both times, both of my pregnancy, maternity leave subs, I said, text me. I'm great at texting. I can usually text back, even if I'm breastfeeding my baby. I can usually get back to you pretty quickly, but don't call. I'm afraid the ringers will wake up the baby, or I probably won't be able to pick up, my hands are going to be full. Whatever the case is. So you tell your substitute and your colleagues, whoever's going to be needing to get a hold of you, just let them know what way is going to be the easiest way to get a hold of you. And then please check those. Be fast to respond. There's nothing worse than being in a classroom and not knowing what you're supposed to do. Just be accessible. Of course, those first couple of weeks, no one will expect you to answer a text, to respond to an email, to pick up the phone. They know you're getting precious baby cuddles, and hey, you just carried a baby, delivered a baby, and are now cuddling a baby, probably not getting much sleep, and everyone understands that. I'm talking more about after a couple of weeks, and maybe you're getting a couple of hours of sleep. But please make sure you're accessible to your substitute and to your administrator and to your team. Number 6, connect with other teachers in your school and your team and your colleagues while you're gone. Now, like I said, those first couple weeks, baby cuddles, tune the world out, soak those in. I'm talking about once you start feeling like a person again. Once you can start getting in your emails, catching up with people, send a quick little note. Like for example, in my school, a colleague friend of mine had a family tragedy and sent out a note to all the staff in our emails. You know, this happened in my family, you know, here's what's going on with me. And you know, it was just so easy, even on your computer or even on your phone. You can text an email back, or, you know, you can type out an email on your phone and send it back. You know, thinking of you, praying for you, so sorry to hear about what's going on. Stay connected with people. It makes it such an easier transition going from home back to work, because you've already made those connections, you're already talking to people, and you're not just out of the blue coming back after up to 12 weeks or sometimes even more. I was gone for a little bit more. But reach out to your teammates. Say hi. You know, if you guys are on a texting basis, text them, check in with them. Hey guys, how's it going? For me, I was gone the first little chunk of school. So I was sending little notes to my team saying, hey team, it's the first day of school. I'm thinking of you guys. You got this. Or, you know, just little things like that. I was trying to connect with people in a way that I could while I was home cuddling babies. And like I said, no one expects a ton out of you. You're on maternity leave. Get the baby cuddles. Number 8. Give yourself a ton of grace. When you jump back into work, you know, your class has already been in session without you. You'll get there, come back in, but don't expect that you're just going to nail everything 100% the second you walk into your classroom. You know, they've had a full little community going on while you've been home. Give yourself quite a few days just to assimilate, to come back in, to get to know your sweet little students again, if you've already had them, or if you're seeing them for the first time. Give yourself some time to build those relationships, connect back in with your colleagues, with your administrator, with the support staff that's at school. Give yourself some time. It's so hard as teachers, I know. We just want to do everything amazing. We want an A+ on everything, right? Well, when you're just coming back to work after your maternity leave, you're going to drop the ball on some things, and that's just reality. Hopefully you'll pick those balls back up and you'll get back into the swing of things, and I'm sure you will. But just give yourself a couple of days for your mind, for your emotions, for your heart, to just take everything in, process everything, because things change as you're gone. Work environments change. There might be new faces, new systems, new routines, new students to get to know, and you've got to jump back in while they've already been there without you. So give yourself a couple of days. You've got this. If you've been on maternity leave and you're a teacher, or I guess even if you're not a teacher, but just if you have any maternity leave, how to prepare and how to jump back in, little tips or things that really helped you out, please link them down below. We'd love to hear them. Also, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed.